Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. Dynamite tonight was from the Heritage Bank Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Dynamite tonight, I thought this was a very mid-show, in my opinion. Next week is Grand Slam, which, in my opinion, will be a much better show, and I will be attending Grand Slam next week. It's going to be my second year going to Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Stadium. So it should be a good show next week. But tonight on Dynamite, we had the International Championship on the line. Jon Moxley defended the title against Big Bill. And I'm like, this made no sense whatsoever because it's heel versus heel. So then we had Toni Storm versus Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida. The winner gets to face Saraya for the Women's World Championship next week at Grand Slam. Obviously predictable when I get into it, when I talk about it. We had Hangman and Page versus Brian Cage of the Mogul Embassy. We had Darby Allin and Nick Wayne. They teamed up to take on Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. And the main event, we had Smojo versus Roderick Strong. This was the final match in the Grand Slam World Championship Tournament. And both Smojo and Roderick Strong won their matches this past Saturday on Collision, which I did not review Collision because it was a horrible show. The first hour felt like I was watching AEW Dark, and the second hour felt more like a Collision show. But overall, that Collision was just terrible on Saturday night. CM Punk is very missed on Collision. And if this is how Collision is going to be, I'm like, what is the point in watching Collision on Saturday? You know, without CM Punk there, and they're just going to make it like a 2-hour AEW Dark or a 2-hour Rampage. So, I'm like, what's the point? But Smojo versus Roderick Strong was the main event tonight. The winner of the match will get to face MJF next week at Grand Slam for the World Championship. But overall, Dynamite tonight, very mid-show, very predictable with some of the matches here. But anyways, let's jump right into the review. Dynamite opened up tonight with the International Championship on the line. Jon Moxley defended the title against Big Bill. And I'm like, this match was fine, but it's heel versus heel. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. We have Jon Moxley, a part of the Blackpool Combat Club, who are heels. Big Bill, a part of the Mogul Embassy. He is a heel. So why are we doing heel versus heel? It's like Tony Khan is just throwing shit at the wall thinking that it would stick. Tony Khan's probably like, oh, we don't have nobody for Jon Moxley. Oh, let me write down some names and just let me take it out of the hat. And okay, here's who Moxley will face tonight with the International Championship on the line. Oh, Big Bill. Okay, that's Moxley's challenger for tonight. So yeah. So Moxley came out. This, of course, was in Moxley's hometown. He's from Cincinnati. And we had Big Bill coming out. He was accompanied by Ricky Starks. So Ricky Starks was shown posing on a turnbuckle as Big Bill came into the ring. So the match got underway. Moxley ended up attacking Big Bill. He was trying to wear Big Bill down. Big Bill ended up catching Moxley with an uppercut. that gave him an advantage in the match. Big Bill laid into Moxley with some more uppercuts. Big Bill continued the attack in the corner on Moxley with some chops. Moxley then attempted to fight back at Big Bill with some chops of his own. Big Bill caught Moxley and he delivered a fallaway slam to Moxley. Moxley then headed to the corner, but he ended up getting caught by Big Bill with a corner splash. Moxley then avoided a big boot from Big Bill. Big Bill ended up catching Moxley for a second time, and this time he ended up sending Moxley out of the ring with a boot to Moxley's head. Big Bill started taunting the crowd, and the ref got distracted by Big Bill, and that gave Ricky Starks to hit some shots of his own to Moxley. Big Bill then left the ring and continued his assault on Moxley. So Big Bill started laying in some right hands on Moxley. Moxley ended up sending Big Bill into the ring steps, and it just gave way to a heavy thud from Big Bill into the other ring steps. So we had Big Bill end up sending Moxley into a nearby table, and Dynamite went to commercial. And then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, we had Moxley in control of the match. He ended up catching Big Bill on the top turnbuckle. He ended up hitting a superplex, driving Big Bill down to the canvas. And at this point, Moxley was shown busted open. So Moxley ended up bleeding in like 10 minutes. So we had Moxley end up getting a huge pop from the crowd, and Big Bill then ended up dropping Moxley with a side slam. Big Bill ended up going for the cover. Moxley ended up kicking out. So Big Bill ended up going for another big boot to Moxley's head. So Moxley ended up getting back to his feet. Both men were trading strikes at each other. Moxley ended up stopping a big boot to the face from Big Bill, and Moxley then ended up hitting a lariat to Big Bill. Mox ended up going for the cover, and Big Bill ended up kicking out. So we had Moxley end up delivering some elbows to Big Bill. He ended up going to look for a bulldog choke to Big Bill, but Big Bill got to his feet. Mox then hopped on Bill's back, but Mox was sent into the corner by Bill. So we have Mox end up catching Bill out of nowhere with a cutter. Bill ended up rolling out of the ring as Mox ended up climbing up to the top. Starks ended up dropping Moxley down. Big Bill ended up getting back in the ring, and Bill ended up hitting a big boot to Moxley. So Bill ended up going for the cover, and Moxley ended up kicking out. So Bryan Danielson then rushed down to the ring, and we had Bryan and Starks fighting on the outside. Mox ended up rolling Big Bill up, and Big Bill ended up kicking out. Bill ended up countering a turnbuckle attack from Moxley for a big choke slam to Moxley. So Big Bill ended up going for the cover. Mox ended up kicking out. So Big Bill then started laying into Moxley with some punches, and this gave Moxley a chance to lock in the triangle choke on Big Bill. Big Bill ended up fighting to his feet. Bryan kept Starks back, and we had Big Bill back on his feet, but he couldn't fight the triangle chokehold long enough, so Big Bill ended up tapping out. So there you go. Jon Moxley ended up winning the match, retaining the International Championship. Overall, match was fine. Wasn't great or perfect by any means. Post-match, Starks ended up attacking Bryan, and he ended up rushing into the ring. Starks rushed into the ring to go after Moxley. Claudio ended up heading to ringside to intervene. Claudio ended up raising Big Bill up on his shoulders, but Big Bill ended up escaping to the outside. Him and Starks ended up regrouping on the ramp, and pretty much that was basically that. So I'm like, what is it? The Blackpool Combat Club are baby faces now? So we're going to get, either Moxley and Claudio versus Big Bill and Ricky Starks. Is that where we're going? Looks like it. But like I said, the match was fine between Moxley and Big Bill. Wasn't great or perfect by any means, but predictable, of course, with Moxley win the match. And then we saw Renee Paquette. Renee Paquette was backstage. She was talking with Roderick Strong, and he was there with the Kingdom, Mike Bennett and Matt Taven. So she was talking to Roderick Strong about the World Championship Eliminator Final against Samoa Joe. So Adam Cole ended up interrupting to state his concern for Roderick Strong's neck. So Roderick Strong ended up mocking Cole. He ended up promising to beat Samoa Joe and get his World Championship shot next week against MJF. So Strong and the Kingdom end up leaving, and Adam Cole was concerned about his friend. But that was basically that. And then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was in the ring, and he welcomed Don Callis to the ring. So Don Callis made his way out along with Konosuke Takeshita. And this was to unveil a masterpiece, and to who Takeshita's next opponent will be. So Don Callis then hyped up Takeshita, which got boos from the crowd. He kept saying, when you beat someone like Kenny Omega twice in 7 days, you are no longer the ace. You are the alpha. So we had a graphic that said the alpha on the Titantron. So we are now, to address Takeshita as the alpha. So Don Callis is like, because when you're the alpha, you don't fear, but rather take and take more. He kept saying that beating Omega was not enough for Callis, because now he is going to break Omega's heart. He was talking about Takeshita. Takeshita being Omega was not enough. So Don Callis ended up promising to unveil a masterpiece here. So if you remember last week, there was a black tarp, covering a picture on an easel. So Don Callis ended up unveiling the picture that was under the black tarp. So Takeshita's next target, the alpha Takeshita, his next target is Kota Ibushi, which I called last week. I said Takeshita's next opponent will be Ibushi. And so all you saw on the other picture was Takeshita, and he had a sword in his hand, and the sword was going to Ibushi. So Don Callis ended up promising that they're not going to just beat Ibushi. They're going to butcher Ibushi. So Don Callis ended up saying that he's looking forward to Omega having to watch it happen from home. So Don Callis had the screwdriver that was used on Omega, and he stuck the screwdriver into the portrait, with Ibushi's head, on the portrait. So that was basically that. But there you go. We're going to get Konosuke Takeshita, the alpha, versus Kota Ibushi. I sense that match is probably going to happen at Wrestle Dream. But looking forward to the match when it happens. It's going to be a good match between Ibushi and Takeshita. And then we went backstage, and we saw Alex Marvez. Alex Marvez was talking to the Blackpool Combat Club. Bryan Danielson laid out a challenge to Ricky Starks this Saturday on Collision. So they then started to address their title matches at Grand Slam next week. So Rey Fenix and Eddie Kingston ended up showing up. Phoenix was yelling at Moxley, but Eddie Kingston ended up simply telling Claudio, one more week. And then he ended up laughing and he walked off. So that was basically that. But we're going to be getting Jon Moxley versus Rey Fenix for the International Championship, to which obviously Moxley will retain. And then Claudio Castagnoli and Eddie Kingston. This is going to be a winner-takes-all match for the Ring of Honor World Championship and the Strong Openweight Championship, to which obviously Eddie Kingston is going to win the match. He's going to win the Ring of Honor World Championship and the Strong Openweight Championship because, it's in Eddie Kingston's hometown. Eddie Kingston is from New York, and what better way to give Eddie Kingston the win by making him win both championships, which, it's going to happen. And then we saw Renee Paquette. Renee Paquette was backstage as Dynamite came back from the commercial, and she was with Hook and Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy ended up saying that Hook seems upset, but he has no reason. He's here in AEW, and he has a championship, which is the FTW championship. So Orange Cassidy ended up saying that he used to have a championship, the International Championship. And we had both Hook and Orange Cassidy end up bumping fists. Hook ended up walking away, and Renee ended up asking Orange Cassidy how he's doing. Orange Cassidy ended up saying that he's still tired. So that was basically that. But did this really need to be a backstage interview with Hook and Orange Cassidy here? I mean, are we going to get Hook versus Orange Cassidy? This is shaped up to be that. But who knows? And then we had Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, versus Toni Storm versus Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida. This was a number one contender fatal four-way match where the winner will get to face Saraya for the Women's World Championship next week at Grand Slam. And this was a very meh women's match here. So we had Toni Storm trying to stop the match saying, "Oh, I'm not ready. So we had Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, Hikaru Shida end up going after Toni Storm. Nyla Rose ended up taking Hikaru Shida and Britt Baker down. And we had all four competitors going at it. Nyla Rose ended up getting sent out of the ring by Hikaru Shida. So we had Hikaru Shida and Britt Baker end up going at it. And it caused Toni Storm to get an advantage here in the match. So Hikaru Shida ended up hitting a dive off the top turnbuckle onto Baker and Toni Storm and Nyla Rose, which that dive off the top turnbuckle looked great from Hikaru Shida. So then Dynamite went to commercial. Then when Dynamite came back from the commercial, Britt Baker was in control of the match, started fighting back against Nyla Rose with a thrust kick. So Britt Baker was then taken down with a German suplex by Toni Storm. Toni Storm then ended up hitting a hip attack on Nyla Rose. Toni Storm ended up getting taken down by Hikaru Shida. So we had a stare down between Shida and Baker, which led to Shida being taken out of the ring. Nyla Rose ended up hitting a sit-out powerbomb on Toni Storm. So Toni Storm and Britt Baker were down. Hikaru Shida and Nyla Rose ended up going after each other, which led to Britt Baker hitting a thrust kick to break up a pin by Hikaru Shida. Britt Baker ended up getting rolled up by Toni Storm. And there you go. Toni Storm ended up winning the match. She is going to face Saraya next week at Grand Slam for the Women's World Championship. Predictable. Absolutely predictable. I knew that Toni Storm was going to win this Fatal 4-Way, and she was going to face Saraya at Grand Slam. Obviously, I knew where it was going. Post-match, Toni Storm ended up escaping to the ramp to celebrate. Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida started arguing. Nyla Rose ended up leaving with Marina Snorefear. So that was that. Overall, very meh match. Outcome was predictable. So then we saw Renee Paquette. Renee Paquette was backstage. She was talking to Saraya and also Ruby Soho about Saraya's match next week against Toni Storm. Saraya ended up talking about Toni Storm losing her mind. And next week, she will lose the match because she will still walk out as Women's World Champion, as what Saraya ended up saying. So there you go. That was that. Ruby Soho, of course, colored her hair. She did not have the green in her hair. So she looked good, with the brunette color. And then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, we had Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho, they sex gods, made their way to the ring, and they ended up addressing a few things after losing to Aussie Open last week. So Jericho and Guevara, of course, will face each other next week at Grand Slam. Jericho then raised the mic to address the match. Jericho talked about his history with Guevara that they have together and the ups and downs that they have since they've had since the very first episode of Dynamite. So Jericho ended up offering a video package, of their history together, his and Guevara's history. So we end up seeing that, and I thought it was a decent, video package showcasing Guevara and Jericho's history. So then we saw they had, laugh about things, Guevara and Jericho. Jericho ended up talking about seeing Guevara for the first time at an NWA show. The first time I saw Sammy Guevara was when he was in Lucha Underground. And he was entertaining, there. So he ended up talking about that, Jericho, seeing, how he saw Guevara at the NWA show and being blown away. He ended up saying that he remembers telling Tony Khan that they need to sign Guevara to AEW. Jericho ended up saying that he knew Guevara had what it took to be a big star and wanted to help him out as much as possible. He ended up saying over the years, he watched Guevara grow from a boy to a man. He ended up saying that he's proud of all he's done over the years. Guevara ended up saying that he doesn't want to do the typical wrestling thing and talk trash because Jericho has inspired him for so long. Guevara then ended up thanking Jericho for changing so many people's lives because without Jericho there is no AEW. Guevara ended up saying he didn't get into this business or AEW to be Jericho's sidekick. He ended up saying that he came into this business to be the best, but he cannot do that if he stays in Jericho's shadow. So Guevara ended up saying that he must beat Jericho next week. So Jericho ended up saying what Guevara said is true, but he didn't bring Guevara in to be his sidekick. So Jericho hyped up the importance of the match. He ended up agreeing that Guevara must beat him to get to the next level. And to beat him, he has to be the best Sammy Guevara can be. So Jericho ended up saying that he doesn't think Guevara can beat him. something that Guevara takes issue with. So he ends up saying that the man standing in front of Jericho right now is going to beat him. So Jericho ended up saying that Guevara is going to earn his respect and that they're going to shake hands and then they're going to win those World Tag Team titles. Guevara then offered a handshake, to which Jericho ended up accepting. So we had Jericho pulling Guevara in for a warning. He ended up saying next week he's going to give Guevara the match of his life, and he's not going to make it easy. Jericho ended up saying that he's going to give Guevara everything he's got, and he expects the same from Guevara. So he ended up saying that he wouldn't want it any other way. So both Guevara and Jericho ended up shaking hands, and they were staring each other down, and that was that. But overall, really enjoyed this segment here. Really looking forward to Jericho and Guevara next week. I'll be in attendance live. I know it's going to be a great match, and would not be surprised if Guevara turns heel on Jericho next week. So that's my prediction. I think probably next week we're going to see Guevara turn heel on Jericho. But maybe wrong on that. That's my prediction. So then we saw MJF. MJF ended up talking about the finalists, Roderick Strong and Samoa Joe. So it was revealed that MJF is not cleared to wrestle tonight, but he will be ready for Grand Slam. So MJF was running both Roderick Strong and Samoa Joe down, and he kept specifically promising that he's going to choke Joe out if Samoa Joe won against Roderick Strong. So MJF started doing some Steiner math with a little twist. He had promising the results will spell out disaster for him at Arthur Ashe. So that was that. Good promo from MJF there. And then we had Brian Cage versus Hangman Adam Page. And this was a decent match here. Both Brian Cage and Hangman Adam Page looked good here in the match. It was a very physical match between the both of them. So Brian Cage ended up going after Page, and he was laying into Page in the corner. Hangman ended up fighting back. So Cage ended up dropping Page with a shoulder tackle. Cage ended up going back on the attack on Hangman and Page. So he was then sent to the apron. Page ended up dropping Cage with a lariat. Cage ended up catching a crossbody attempt, and he ended up taking a hurricanrana into the ring post from Page. Page came back into the ring. He ended up hitting a springboard crossbody onto Brian Cage on the floor, which looked great. So Page ended up heading back to the ring. He was met by Brian Cage, and we had Page end up sending Brian Cage into the ropes, and he ended up hitting a Tiger Fin kick on Brian Cage. So then Swerve Strickland ended up coming out, which Page got distracted by Swerve coming out, which allowed Brian Cage to go back on the attack on Page, and Brian Cage ended up hitting a German suplex off the apron to Page. So then Dynamite went to commercial. So then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Brian Cage ended up delivering a half Nelson slam to Page. So Brian Cage ended up going for the cover, and Page ended up kicking out. Page got back to his feet, and we had both Page and Cage end up delivering some blows to each other. Cage ended up getting the upper hand. Page then ended up avoiding a clothesline from Brian Cage. So we had Brian Cage end up delivering a power slam to Page. So we had Brian Cage end up going up for a moonsault, and Page ended up rolling out of the way. Brian Cage got back to his feet, and so did Page. So we had a standstill between both guys. Page then ended up dodging another clothesline attempt from Brian Cage. He ended up sending Brian Cage over the top rope, and both men were out on the floor. Hangman ended up going up on the ropes for a springboard, but he was caught in midair by Brian Cage, and that allowed for Page to catch Brian Cage with a crucifix pin. So Page ended up going for the cover, and Brian Cage ended up kicking out. So we had Hangman and Page end up delivering a baseball slide drop kick on Brian Cage. Page went up on the top turnbuckle as Cage ended up standing back up, and Hangman and Page delivered a moonsault to Brian Cage. So Brian Cage ended up getting back in the ring. Page ended up hitting a crossbody, and Page ended up going for the cover. Brian Cage ended up kicking out. So later on, we had Page end up setting up for the buckshot lariat to Brian Cage, but Page ended up getting caught with a F5 attempt from Brian Cage, but Page ended up delivering a small package on Brian Cage, and Brian Cage ended up kicking out. So we had Page end up hitting the dead eye on Brian Cage. He ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Hangman and Page ended up winning the match. Post-match, Page got on the mic. He started running down Swerve. He ended up saying that Swerve doesn't have what it takes to face Page. Swerve then had a mic in hand, and he responded to Page, saying, "Those sound like fighting words." Swerve ended up telling Page that he will do this where he says. So Swerve ended up choosing to do this at Wrestle Dream on October 1st. So Swerve laid down the challenge for Hangman and Page. He ended up saying that he's going to make sure Page isn't going to be comfortable going into the match. So the Mogul Embassy will tune him up some more. So this led to a beatdown by Brian Cage. So Brian Cage started beating down on Page. Prince Nana, was dancing around like a fool. And the Young Bucks end up running in to make the save. The Young Bucks end up delivering a double super kick to Brian Cage. And, Prince Nana, of course, still acting like a fool. And the Bucks end up delivering a double super kick to Prince Nana as well. And the Bucks end up helping Page to his feet. And that was basically that. Overall, decent match between Hangman Page and Brian Cage here. Both look great in the ring. It was very physical between these two. And then we saw Renee Paquette. Renee Paquette was talking to Daniel Garcia. And he wanted to talk about how popular he's been as of late. So Don Callis ended up coming out to offer him a spot. So now we see Daniel Garcia just dancing to Don Callis, going like, and moving his hips. So Don Callis ended up liking what he saw. He ended up telling Daniel Garcia, "Let's make some money." So that was that. So it looks like maybe Daniel Garcia could be the next member of the Don Callis family. And then we saw a video package. It was of Jade Cargill returning on Collision this past Saturday. She did return, and she ended up laying out Chris Statlander, and lo and behold, she comes back, and she's getting a championship match against Chris Statlander on Rampage Friday. TBS Championship will be on the line. So she comes back and already gets a shot at the TBS Championship. Can you explain to me, what did she do to earn an opportunity to get a rematch for the TBS Championship? Already a championship match. And I would not be surprised if she takes back the championship. God. Tony Khan's booking like Vince McMahon here. So then we had Darby Allin and Nick Wayne versus Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. And this was just a very meh match here. Darby Allin, Nick Wayne, they make a good tag team together. So Nick Wayne and Angelo Parker started things off, and they were interrupted by Christian Cage and Luchasaurus. Christian Cage ended up heading to the commentary table, and Angelo Parker ended up taking advantage of that by being down on Nick Wayne. Angelo Parker ended up tagging in Matt Menard. Menard ended up going after Nick Wayne with some strikes. He then delivered a vertical suplex to Nick Wayne. Nick Wayne ended up catching Matt Menard with an enziguri, and then we had Menard end up hitting a powerbomb to Nick Wayne. So Dynamite went to commercial. Then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Matt Menard and Angelo Parker were still on the attack on Nick Wayne. So we had Nick Wayne end up tagging Darby Allin in. Darby Allin ended up going after both Menard and Parker, and he ended up hitting a code red on Parker, and Darby ended up going for the cover. Parker ended up kicking out. Parker ended up coming back with a suplex attempt as Darby ended up fighting back. So he ended up tagging in Nick Wayne. Nick Wayne ended up hitting Wayne's World, party time, excellent, on Angelo Parker as he came in. Nick Wayne ended up going for the cover. Matt Menard ended up pulling Nick Wayne out to break the pin. So we had Darby end up delivering a dive to Matt Menard. Darby ended up getting a tag in. He ended up hitting the coffin drop on Parker as Nick Wayne ended up hitting the moonsault on Menard to the outside. Darby ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Darby Allin and Nick Wayne ended up winning the match. Post-match, Christian Cage got on the mic. He started running down Nick Wayne and also Nick Wayne's mom. So then Christian Cage ended up running down Darby Allin and Sting. So we had Christian Cage end up finding this all embarrassing. He ended up saying not losing to the Cleveland Browns embarrassing, but still. Christian ended up saying that he didn't take the fall in that match, nor did he have his regular partner with him. So Christian ended up proposing a tag team match. Him and Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin and Sting. So he ended up proposing that match for Grand Slam next week. And obviously the match is going to happen. So we'll be getting that at Grand Slam next week. Main event. Roderick Strong versus Samoa Joe. World title, eliminated tournament, final match. The winner gets to face MJF next week for the World Championship. And this was a very good match here. Really enjoyed this main event here. Yeah, Roderick Strong being accompanied by the Kingdom, Mike Bennett and Matt Taven. And then Samoa Joe end up coming out. So the match started off with both Samoa Joe and Roderick Strong circling the canvas. They then end up locking up. Joe ended up ringing the arm of Strong. Strong ended up heading to the ropes to break the hold. Of course, Strong competed without his neck brace. So Strong ended up getting sent to the outside. He ended up regrouping with the Kingdom. He then stepped back into the ring. He was looking to go for a single leg takedown to Joe. And Joe ended up sending Roderick Strong back out of the ring. So we had Strong end up laying in some strikes on Joe. Joe ended up responding with a shoulder tackle, which sent him head over heels. Strong was in the corner. Joe ended up laying in some stomps and strikes to Strong. And then Joe followed up with a chop. So they then started trading strikes at each other as Dynamite went to commercial. So then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Roderick Strong was in control of the match. He started to lay in some strikes to Joe. So Strong ended up going for the cover. Joe ended up kicking out. Strong ended up catching a chin lock on Joe, but Joe got back to his feet. He ended up fighting out of the chin lock. Strong ended up fighting back. He ended up hitting a drop kick to Joe. So Strong ended up going for the cover. Joe kicked out. So we had Joe ended up delivering a power slam to Strong. Joe ended up getting taken down with a lariat by Strong. And then Strong ended up going for the cover. Joe ended up kicking out. Strong was looking to go for a stronghold, but Joe fought out of that easily. He ended up taking Strong down to the canvas with an STO from the corner. Joe then ended up setting Strong up in the corner. Joe was looking to go for the muscle buster, but the Kingdom ended up getting involved, and that led to Strong ended up hitting a slam on Joe, which was crazy. Looked like an angle slam that Strong ended up hitting Joe with. So Strong ended up delivering a kick to Joe. He ended up going for the cover, and Joe kicked out. So Strong was in the corner as Joe got to his feet. Strong then started to charge at Joe. Joe then ended up taking Strong out with a lariat. And then Joe locked in the coquina clutch. Strong tried to fight out of the coquina clutch, but he couldn't, so Strong tapped out. So there you go. Samoa Joe ended up winning the match, and he will be facing MJF next week at Grand Slam for the World Championship. Obviously predictable. I knew that Joe was going to win this. So, post-match, Joe got on the mic. He kept saying, "Oh, Max." Reminded me of when he did that with AJ Styles, but Joe went, "Oh, Wendy." So, Joe ended up saying that his prophecy came true, and he's coming to MJF's backyard and taking everything the champ has, kid. Everything. Joe then dropped the mic, and he left the ring. He headed up the ramp. The Kingdom tried to help Roderick Strong out in the ring. So then Adam Cole ended up heading down the ramp to check on his best friend, Roderick Strong. So Strong dropped down to the canvas, and he was yelling about his neck. And I'm like, Adam Cole is not that stupid to see that you just dropped down to the canvas purposely. So Strong was yelling about his neck. He was going, "Adam! Adam!" So a stretcher was being brought out. So we had Roderick Strong yelling at Cole, going, "Adam! Adam!" So the Kingdom and Adam Cole started to argue with each other. So Cole was trying to go to the back, and the Kingdom was just like, "Oh, get back, get back." So Cole was on the stage, and then lo and behold, Samoa Joe came running out, and he locked in the coquina clutch on Adam Cole. Adam Cole was then passed out. Joe ended up yelling that he's taking everything from MJF next week. So Joe was on the ramp, standing tall over Adam Cole, and then Dynamite went off the air. But overall, very good match between Samoa Joe and Roderick Strong here. Obviously predictable in the outcome. I knew Samoa Joe was going to win it, but it should be a good match next week at Grand Slam. Samoa Joe and MJF World Championship. Does Samoa Joe, win the World Championship? Possibly not. So, Samoa Joe is the Ring of Honor World Television Champion. But it would shock me if Samoa Joe ended up winning the World Championship. So he'll be holding the World Championship and the Ring of Honor World Television Championship. But overall, Dynamite tonight, just a very mid-show, in my opinion. Predictable stuff. And I fully expect Grand Slam to be a very good show next week. I'll be in attendance. So, looking forward to it. Second Grand Slam show that I'm attending. So, very much looking forward to it. But anyways, that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and there will be no SmackDown or AEW Rampage review this Friday, so won't be around to be doing the review. So maybe I'll do an AEW Collision review. I don't know. So, but until next video, I'll see you all later.